Welcome to another episode of Startup Health Now, the weekly show celebrating the healthcare transformers and changemakers reimagining healthcare. My name is Stephen Krein. On today's episode, we're sitting down with Adam Simon, the president and CEO of Cerora, who is transforming brain health and concussion detection. This is going to be a great episode.
It is the duty of leaders to lead, of the creative to create, of the daring to do. The free world expects leadership of us. Its fate and our fate depends upon our leadership. We are industrious, inventive, restless, with the fires that burn within us. Well, I say that nothing is easy, and the best things are the hardest. And all our troubles, all our immense difficulties, now and in the future, can I say, be solved if we have the will, the courage. The future is to those who take it.
Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I want to start off with, who is Adam Simon?
Who is Adam Simon? I am I guess I'm a rare bird. I am a physicist by training. I got my PhD in physics at the University of Chicago, and then I deserted the physical sciences and went to life sciences, did some postdocs at the physics-biology interface, and then spent 13 years at Merck Research Labs doing both drug discovery and biomarker discovery.
So typical entrepreneur background. No, I mean, how'd you get into entrepreneurship? Because first of all, incredible background, but the path to entrepreneurship clearly not inherent, obvious in there. But what made you become an entrepreneur?
I like to do things. I like to create things, and I like to create value. And Merck's a great organization, but I found it frustrating at times that there was more politics and avoiding of stepping on toes instead of solving the really tough problems and getting stuff done. And that's what I like to do. So by being an entrepreneur, I can spend 99 or 98% of my time creating value, working on real things. And I'm not so good at keeping the books and some of the other parts that are important.
So do you remember the moment you decided to become an entrepreneur?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was an entrepreneur even in grad school, moving into my postdoc years. So my first company was around some IP that, I was a part of while I was a postdoc, and, didn't understand the patent process and raising capital, and went out and filed my first patent application and raised capital. And, so for me, it's been, it's in my blood. I enjoy thinking about hard problems and then being creative and innovative and trying to solve them. And
so within that mix of what you enjoy doing, what led you to start Cerora?
Yeah, so Cerora started from when I left Merck. I was in the Alzheimer's disease space. I was leading our BACE inhibitor program, world expert in AD biomarkers, and I'd go to these really big meetings, and everything that was going on in the brain in the diagnostic sense was a snapshot. It was taking a structural picture at an instant in time. And, we've got two vital organs, the heart and the brain, and we don't stop at snapshots for the heart. We make movies. We look at dynamics. And so I was frustrated with the tools that existed. It was clear to me there had to be a better way. I didn't know what it was in the beginning. So we started our first company around just a single lead of EEG. Mm-hmm. That was the predecessor to Cerora. The idea there was that we were, with just a single lead of EEG, going to make it light, portable, accurate, bring that objective biosensor-based approach. And then we did our first clinical study in a small group of Alzheimer's subjects. I flew to Paris and gave a poster, and in a poster session, if you're not familiar, I had 30, 40 people come by, and several of them were friends from my biomarker stuff. What they ended up giving...
Those biomarker friends.
Biomarker friends.
Ton of fun with those guys. Huh?
Wild and crazy, right? You got to tip a few when you're talking biomarkers. And so, when the fourth one said, Adam, I think you're onto something here with the clinical sensitivity, but how are you going to tell Alzheimer's from migraine or a concussion or schizophrenia. You're missing the specificity. And it was getting...
Did some one person say that to you?
6 people said it to me in a 3-hour window.
Okay.
And none of them had heard the previous one. And so by the 4th one, it's like you're being telegraphed with a message. And by the 6th one, at the end of it, it was like, okay, you know what? I just had, and these were all friendly people being critical but helpful.
Sure.
And so that was the beginning of a pivot from just being a single lead of EEG to let's open the toolbox and include more biosensors and figure out how to characterize the brain with more than just one lead of EEG, which is what we naively thought in the beginning. And like a good entrepreneur, I had no idea how hard the road was going to be. Otherwise, we wouldn't start.
So I do want to dig in a little bit more to Cerora, but I want to go back on something you said because I think it's fascinating.
Sure.
You went out and shared an idea, a concept, even a belief that you thought you were going to do one thing, and it ended up being the feedback that you received changed the game.
Without a doubt.
Entrepreneurs spend so much time keeping things close to the vest and not sharing and not talking. Philosophically, how do you think about that in terms of what you're doing, broadcasting it out, telling as many people as possible so you can get that critical feedback?
Yeah, so that's a really important question, and for me, the answer came from my experience first at Merck and then afterwards with intellectual property. So I did it responsibly. We filed provisional patent applications. A year later, we filed national stage and international stage PCT applications. Once those had been filed, then we put the poster up, and you're free to speak. As long as everything on the poster is in your application, you're free to speak. So at that point, we had protected what we had discovered. We were looking for feedback, and the feedback that I got in that poster session was enormously positive in that it helped me see from a lot of really smart people, right, clinicians that know way more than I do, that there was a liability with the direction we were heading. And, you know, when you get that gift of feedback, it allowed us to think about how to make a pivot. We wouldn't talk about our pivot until we filed some more IP, until we developed some more evidence, and then at the appropriate time, then, you know, I'm motor mouth and ready to run, chew off anybody's ear as much as I can.
So, okay, I want to use that now to go deeper into what is Cerora today. And, we've had the privilege of working with you for the last two and a half years.
Yep.
You were one of the companies chosen for the Select Startup Health and GE program, I think 2.5 years ago.
Yep.
But it's been fascinating to watch you not just execute, but figure it out along the way. I'd love to hear your own description today of what Cerora is, because I know it's a lot more than oftentimes I give it credit to, or because I give the very layperson's version of it, which is I hope that every coach and every parent in America whose children play sports keeps one in their bag or their pocketbook to detect concussions or potential concussions. So what's the description of Cerora today?
So if you want a focused description, your description is excellent, right? But what's saying that we're a toolbox strictly for concussion and traumatic brain injury is to downplay the platform aspect of what we're building to be able to go after all kinds of other neurologic conditions and psychiatric conditions. So what is Cerora today? Cerora really is the transforming brain health assessment from what is today a subjective, soft, mushy set of methods, right? Follow my finger, do you have a headache? Questionnaires that people rate each other on how grumpy they are and things of that sort, to let's get away from that. Let's start using biosensors. Let's measure with the objectivity of, silicon-based chips what's going on in the brain. And let's do it in a portable way. Let's do it in an easy-to-use way. Let's do it in a way that can be distributed and not have to go to a hospital or a diagnostic center, but out in the field. Okay, so how do you describe that? How would you expect that to be described from one person to another who's not an expert? Oh, so very simply in a sentence or two, our real value proposition, what is it that we bring to the table, is the ability to create objective, accurate, diagnostic information about the brain. And unlike all of our other competitors who use one mode of information, We use multiple modes of information, and we do it in a real-time, portable, and objective fashion.
All right, so give us a demo. I want to see this thing in action.
Sure, absolutely.
Again, because I'm always fascinated. You get up during these showcases that we do, and not a lot of digital health and wellness companies are able to bring out some fun toys, but you always bring out a fun toy. So
Absolutely.
walk us through this.
Yeah. So okay. Well, let me give you the. So this is a prototype headset. This is an electrode, and if I show you what's in the ear clip, there's 2 wires, right? So there's 2 leads here, and there's a wire going to this. So it's essentially a fancy voltmeter measuring the potential on my forehead relative to my ear. And where is that potential coming from? That's coming from the firing of the neurons in my brain, right? All of us that are living, breathing, and have an active brain, the ions are flowing in and out. When they're synchronized, they lead to so-called brain waves. Hans Berger made the observation in the late 20s. So 90 years ago, brain waves, microvolts of potential, are on the skull. Mm-hmm. And instead of using a clinical rig that takes a half hour of a trained technician, it's a little painful for the person, they get goop in, they get scrubbed. This takes 2 or 3 seconds to go on, and we've been able to show that we can be accurate with a single lead of EEG. Now, are we the right tool to help a neurosurgeon figure out where to make a cut for epilepsy? Wrong tool completely. Wrong intended use. But if you're looking to help a school nurse when 2 fourth graders collide on the playground to have some preliminary evidence, is there a concussion? Is there a brain injury? We're the right tool. If you want to help a certified athletic trainer looking at a high school gymnast and she tried to do a flip or an aerial and banged her head, how can you help on the spot figure out with some objective evidence whether that subject's brain is injured or not? That's what we're developing here. Okay. So this is a microvolts of potential. It's got a single battery and Bluetooth over. And what you can see on the display.
Sure we can see that. Can we see that on the camera? Fantastic.
What you want to see on the display is voltage on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. So if I stop talking and you'll see my brain waves, and then I'm going to blink. And each time I blink, my eyeball is a dipole. It rotates up. It changes the potential up here. And so we can use these wiggles. We encrypt them. We move them up to the cloud. We run fancy signal processing and predictive models. I don't want to get into the technical details at this point. But at the output of that, we can help classify an unknown subject as to whether they are concussed or not concussed.
How quickly?
It takes about 10 to 20 minutes to do the battery of tests. So the other part of our intellectual property, our secret sauce, is that, I don't like all of the resting state stuff. The brain isn't at rest. So much like a treadmill test for the heart challenges the organ in order to increase the diagnostic accuracy, we do that for the brain. We probe the auditory cortex. We have tasks that light up your visual cortex. We will give you executive function and other things. So at Lehigh University, where we have a 3-year sports concussion study that we're wrapping up in the analysis, we have 274 subjects. 49 of them got concussed during the study, and then we recruited 49 healthy teammates within 24 hours to go through the same scan sequence. And so the idea now is to use this information to help classify, right? So it's about 20, 22 minutes. Once the data is encrypted in 10 seconds, it's in the cloud, and our analysis runs in 10, 20 seconds. A diagnostic report is available. That's about the time. So if you're in the NFL and there's a neurologist on the sideline, if you're on a football field and there isn't a physician there, then add another 10 or 15 minutes for somebody to remotely look at the report. And
how much is this going to cost?
This is going to be very affordable, right? So to There's going to be a headset. There's going to be some disposables. We're building it even more inexpensively for the developing world so that they can use stainless steel.
What's the price range is going to be?
It's going to be sort of at the low end. Simplified version might be $100, and a more expensive version might be $400 or $500.
And how far away are we from seeing this?
This will be hopefully submitted to the FDA and other regulatory authorities in 2016, as early as we can get our package prepared and submitted.
Okay, so this has taken a significant, while you talked about your pivot, it's also accelerated significantly. What's been the biggest difference between your original idea to pivot to today?
Let's see. I guess one of the most exciting things is the opportunity to use the technology in a non-traditional use case. Okay? So you may or may not be aware that in the United States there's $56 billion of workers' compensation insurance written each year. And of that, there's about 25 to 30% of that is fraud. I did an experiment on myself in 2010 for one of our early patent filings. I put a Minnie Mouse in my hand and I showed brain waves in a characteristic pattern. I had a nice alpha peak. I then reach into the freezer and I grab an ice cube. And now instead of a Minnie Mouse, I have an ice cube that creates peripheral pain, and I was able to see that could destroy the standard pattern. So we now have an opportunity to help large carriers provide objective evidence that is inconsistent with a claim, and equally important, in order to prevent somebody from being denied a claim, we can provide the evidence that there is a genuine injury and help people.
Are there too many applications that could be transformed? And I say this with a lot of respect for what you're doing, but you think about all the different things you could do with this.
Yes.
It's almost a little bit like being in a candy store or having red shiny objects floating all over the place. As an entrepreneur, that is both a blessing and a curse. Right?
Absolutely. And we are trying to stay as focused. We started in Alzheimer's and made a mini pivot to concussion and traumatic brain injury. That is our singular focus on the medical side, right? We don't have resources to do anything else. But when an opportunity presents itself to pursue other uses that don't require the same level of clinical evidence, that don't require reimbursement, they make good business sense, much like Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm. We have a chasm crossing opportunity that we can get to from just a 510K clearance. And so we would, in my mind, I feel a little foolish if I didn't pursue a 12 or $13 billion total addressable market that I can get to without reimbursement.
Right. So 10 years from now, what does Cerora look like?
Cerora looks like a company that, for me, success is impact, right? So what do I want it to look like? I want to see my headsets and technology on the sidelines 10 years from now, not 5, 10, on the sidelines of pee-wee soccer games, in the school nurse's office, at the rehab center, in everyone's training kit, used in every pediatrician's office, much like, when's the last time you went to your doctor for your yearly physical and had your brain health assessed?
Never. Yeah.
We want to be the yearly checkup on your brain 10 years from now. How you doing? Let's do a 1 or 2 minute quick look-see, use the objectivity of the biosensors, and transform brain health assessment from what's subjective, soft, mushy sort of stuff, hard science, biosensor data, predictive models. And we don't want to replace clinicians. We love them.
Yeah.
Right? We want to empower them to make better decisions with real data.
I love it. It's a great way to actually wrap up, because your energy and your confidence and your enthusiasm for what you're doing is why this is going to be successful. We often talk about, we don't choose companies, we choose entrepreneurs for Startup Health, because we know they're going to walk through walls, overcome obstacles. They've got the perseverance, and they've got the most important entrepreneurial characteristic, which is confidence about this. So despite how long it takes, despite how difficult it is, fascinated by the impact that you guys can make on brain health. I think you are going to transform healthcare. I think what you are embarking on is ambitious. yet so impactful. And I know you guys are going to do it. So thanks for visiting us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. And there are lots of walls to walk through, and we keep going forward. So it's and great for the program. We're very happy to be a part of Startup Health, and there's an enormous amount of benefit from the community that's really great. So thanks to Unity, you, and the rest of the team. It's good to be. Cerora is very pleased to be in the program.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, excellent.
All right, man.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.